She left everything behind in the span of a single breath, though the choice had lived inside her for years, dormant and throbbing, waiting for courage to be louder than comfort. Dawn arrived out of habit, pale and indifferent, leaking through the cracked blinds of the guest bedroom where Anna had spent the last sleepless night. She watched patterns flicker along the wall, listened to the hush of a house not truly hers. Her husband's steady breathing behind the closed door at the end of the hall, the grandfather clock marking time with no concern for human hearts, the refrigerator's sigh in the kitchen. Silence, she'd learned, could be as heavy as chains. She rose quietly, careful not to disturb the stillness, gentle with her own exhaustion. She moved through the hall on careful feet, paused long enough in the mirror to see the person she'd become. There were lines mapping the edge of her mouth, a suggestion of loss in her eyes. She wore a cotton dress, colorless now from years of sunlight and laundering, a relic of days when hope felt effortless. She fastened her locket around her neck, a nervous fidget she hadn't outgrown. The locket held nothing, not even photos. It was, she realized, only ever about the idea of keeping something close. The suitcase was already packed. It sat by the door like a silent accomplice, filled the previous afternoon in pauses between chores, between small interruptions. There's nothing for breakfast but oatmeal. Don't forget to call the accountant. Anna, have you seen my cufflinks? Each question met with a practiced answer, an echo of herself, never herself. Now the suitcase was ready, its contents meager but deliberate. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, the cash she'd saved 1 bill at a time for months, a spiral notebook, and a blue ceramic mug, her favorite, chipped along the rim. Outside, the air was thin and cool, dawn bright and untroubled. Anna stood for a moment on the porch, taking in the familiar sound of sparrows, the soft traffic from the next street over, the prickle of nerves along her skin. Should she have left a note? She pictured her husband's reaction, the confusion turning sharp, the phone calls, the inevitable message to her sister. Maybe he would think she was at the store or at yoga. Maybe the realization would come slow, only after the things undone began to pile up, only when her absence began to take shape. She walked with purpose, not in haste, but as if carrying a secret the world might try to snatch away. Her steps carried her 6 blocks to the small-town bus station on Main, where a few early commuters leaned against the glass, scrolling their phones or sipping burnt coffee in paper cups. The air inside was scented with bleach and fried onions, comforting in its ordinariness. She bought a ticket at random, did it matter where? The names on the departures board glowed with possibility. Greenfield, she said, surprising herself. The woman behind the glass printed a ticket without asking questions, slid it through the slot, and Anna realized with a jolt that anonymity felt like a gift. The bus rolled out as the sun cleared the rooftops, the city peeling away in bands of color, brick, steel, then fields rushing past in furious green. With every mile, her old world receded, the ties to her marriage and daily rituals unraveling with each bump in the road. She stared out the window, her fingers curled tight, then loose, then tight again. She played scenes from the past few months in her mind, the lack of laughter over breakfast, the polite negotiations about the thermostat or which show to watch, the endless deferrals. She remembered how, not long ago, she'd caught herself apologizing for the noise of her own laughter, for speaking too brightly on the phone with her sister. The memory now made her wince. A person can become invisible, she realized, not through cruelty, but by 1,000 incremental choices to shrink. The bus stopped in an unfamiliar town. It was neither picturesque nor forbidding, just a cluster of buildings around a square, a park fringed by maples and benches. She stepped off and, for a moment, considered letting fear overtake her. What now? But she refused to turn back, her eyes fixed instead on the horizon, on the rhythm of strangers coming and going with their own worries. Anna wandered the town until noon, letting her senses adapt. She bought a coffee and a newspaper from a kiosk, savoring each exchange, grateful for faces that didn't linger on her as she passed. At a community board, she found a flyer. Room for rent, quiet, respectful tenant only. She made the call from a payphone, her voice trembling slightly but stronger than she expected. By evening, she had a place, a small second-floor unit in a rambling house owned by an elderly woman named Evie, who didn't ask questions but set out a plate of cookies and said, "People find their way here for all kinds of reasons." Anna thanked her, unable to suppress her smile. As night fell, uncertainty pressed in, the ache of missing her old life, the guilt that arrived with every quiet moment. But as she lay on a narrow bed beneath the eaves, listening to the distant chime of church bells, Anna promised herself she would not go back. This was the first day in a new story, and though the ending was unclear, the beginning was entirely her own. Morning arrived with a chorus of distant birds and the scent of brewing coffee drifting up from the kitchen below. For a moment, Anna lay in the hush of her new room, trying to recall if this was a dream or finally reality. The ceiling sloped low over her borrowed bed, sunlight slipping through lace curtains, signaling opportunity. She rose, body stiff from travel, and padded quietly to the window to watch the world, this new world, wake up. In the garden, Evie was watering violet blossoms, humming a half-remembered hymn. A quick shower and a careful arrangement of her meager belongings, Anna joined Evie downstairs, both women circling the ritual of breakfast like planets in a gentle orbit. Evie poured 2 cups of coffee with the slow grace of someone who has learned how little needs to be said. "You have plans for the day, dear?" she asked. Anna hesitated, then smiled. "I thought I'd look for work, and maybe explore the town." Evie's eyes crinkled. "Best way to belong anywhere is to put your hands to use." She passed Anna a slip of paper with 2 names and an address, the library and a corner bakery. "Tell them Evie sent you. That'll open a door or 2. Anna started with the bakery, a narrow shop thick with warmth and the smell of cinnamon. She introduced herself and, before nerves could unravel her, mentioned Evie's name. The owner, a kind woman named Mel with flour dusting her forearms, sized Anna up and handed her an apron. "You ever twist dough?" "Yes, but badly," Anna replied, her dry wit earning a surprised laugh. She learned quickly, her hands remembering muscle memory from forgotten Saturdays in her mother's kitchen. She worked alongside Mel, shaping rolls, wiping counters, making small talk with the steady stream of locals. There was comfort in repetition, in the simplicity of ingredients transforming into something more. By midday, Mel handed Anna a paper bag and tucked a few bills inside. "Come by tomorrow if you want more hours," she said. The invitation sounded more like kinship than employment. She introduced herself to the head librarian, a briskly sympathetic woman named Marta, who, hearing she'd just arrived, offered a part-time post shelving books and helping with children's story hour. "Someone moving forward is just what this tired place needs," she said, and Anna smiled at the idea that someone could see her that way. The rest of the day she spent learning streets, mapping alleys, stopping to inspect things she hadn't noticed in years. A mural on a brick wall, a stray cat prowling near the market, laughter echoing from a classroom window. She returned to the rented room at dusk, her arms tired, heart humming with gratitude. Evie was waiting on the porch, knitting. "You look like someone who's found a new corner of themselves," Evie observed, eyes wise, smile gentle. That night, Anna wrote in her spiral notebook, her first real entry, hesitant but alive. "I don't know who I am without all the labels left behind, but I want to find out, even if it's slow. Today, I earned my keep. I made people laugh. I felt useful. I want more of that." As her eyelids grew heavy, Anna thought of the life she'd left, the safe routines, the silent compromises that had cost more than she could ever explain. She missed some comforts, but she did not miss the feeling of erasure, the careful shrinking to make herself fit. Here, among strangers, she could be anything. She drifted into sleep as thunder rumbled, gentle and distant. For the first time in years, her dreams were not of loss, but of open roads, bright kitchens, laughter rising in unknown rooms. When morning came, she would step out again, another page unwritten, but every decision now hers. By the end of the first week, Greenfield had begun to arrange itself around Anna like a shawl. Her days split naturally between the bakery and the library, between the smell of yeast at dawn and the fragrance of paper in the afternoon. At the bakery, she learned the regulars by their orders before she learned their names. Mr. Vale took rye bread and pretended not to buy lemon tarts for himself, The young nurse from the clinic ordered black coffee and always dropped change in the tip jar. At the library, Marta gave Anna a badge with her name printed neatly beneath the town seal. Anna held it in her palm longer than necessary. It was ordinary, laminated, and slightly crooked, but it felt like evidence. She existed somewhere outside her husband's house, outside his judgments, outside the rooms where she had spent years apologizing for needs she barely voiced. One afternoon, while helping arrange donated books for the weekend sale, Anna found a familiar handwriting inside an old poetry collection. The inscription stopped her breath. To Lena, who taught me that leaving is not always abandonment. With love, E. The date was 32 years old. Anna sat back on her heels. Lena had been her mother's name. For years, her mother had existed in family stories as a cautionary tale disguised as sorrow. Lena had left when Anna was 7, vanishing after one winter evening with a coat, a handbag, and a promise nobody believed. Anna's father had explained it simply: fragile women break. Later, Anna's husband had repeated the story, as if it proved something inherited in her. "You're not like her," he'd say whenever Anna cried too long. "You're stronger than that." But his version of strength meant staying quiet. Now, in a library basement, holding a book that smelled of mildew and dust, Anna saw the story tilt. She carried the book home beneath her coat, heart hammering as if she had stolen a relic from a church. Evie was in the kitchen slicing apples, the radio murmuring weather reports. Anna placed the book on the table and opened it to the inscription. "Did you know her?" Anna asked. Evie's knife paused midair. For one long moment, all the softness left her face. She looked older, not frailer, but as if decades had stepped out from behind her eyes. "Yes," Evie said finally. "I knew your mother." The kitchen seemed to shrink around them. Rain tapped the windows. Somewhere upstairs, pipes clanked, ordinary sounds made strange by revelation. Anna gripped the chair back. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you arrived with a suitcase and a wound," Evie replied gently. "People carrying fresh pain deserve shelter before answers." Anna wanted to be angry, but the anger tangled with fear. What happened to her? Evie wiped her hands on a towel and sat. "Lena came here the same way you did, not by plan, not with enough money. She was frightened, proud, and almost impossibly kind. She rented this very room for 6 months." Anna sank into the opposite chair. The room blurred. Her mother had stood here, slept upstairs, looked out the same window at the same garden. The thought was too intimate, almost unbearable. "She left us," Anna whispered. "It came out small, 7 years old." Evie's expression softened. "No, dear, she was taken back." The words landed like a blow. Evie told the story slowly, each sentence careful. Lena had fled a marriage that looked respectable from the street and suffocating from within. She found work at the library, laughed again, wrote letters she was never sure were mailed. Then Anna's father arrived with a doctor, a lawyer, and threats wrapped in concern. He convinced everyone Lena was unstable. He promised treatment, reconciliation, safety. Evie had tried to stop it, but law then leaned heavily toward husbands with money and calm voices. Lena was gone by morning. "What happened after?" Anna asked, though part of her already knew the answer lived in the silence. "She wrote once," Evie said. "A year later. She said she was watched constantly. She said she regretted only one thing, not taking you with her." Anna pressed her hand over her mouth. All her life, she had mistaken absence for rejection. She had built a personality around being the child not worth staying for, then married a man who found that wound useful. The truth did not heal instantly. It burned first. Evie rose and returned with a small tin box. Inside were 3 letters, brittle with age, tied by blue ribbon. "I kept them because I hoped one day someone would need the truth." Anna read until the words swam. Her mother's voice emerged from the page with startling clarity. Funny, tender, terrified. Lena wrote of missing Anna's laugh, of wanting to teach her daughter that obedience is not the same as goodness, that a woman can love her family and still save herself. One line cut deepest. If Anna ever runs, tell her she is not repeating my mistake, she is finishing my escape. Anna wept then, not prettily, not quietly. Evie came around the table and held her, and Anna let herself collapse into the arms of a woman who had once held her mother the same way. Grief moved through her like weather, fierce and cleansing. Later, after the rain stopped, Anna climbed to her room carrying the letters. The town below shone beneath street lamps, washed clean. She understood now that her leaving had not been random. Some invisible thread had pulled her here, not to erase the past, but to reclaim it. For the first time, Anna did not feel like a woman running away. She felt like a daughter being led home. The next morning, Anna woke to the sense of something fundamental having shifted. She was fragile, but it was a new kind of fragility. The tenderness after a wound is washed, not the ache of infection hidden too long. Sunshine spilled across her ceiling, and for once she let herself lie in bed and linger in memory, running her fingers over the pages of her mother's letters. The words landed differently now. She read not a woman desperate to justify her escape, but a woman reaching forward, urging Anna toward freedom that belonged to both of them. She spent the early hours at the bakery, distracted but steady, and Mel noticed her round face creased in concern. At the end of Anna's shift, Mel handed her a cinnamon bun for courage, squeezing her hand a beat longer than necessary. Whatever you're facing, face it. Life's too short for second-guessing joy. Anna nodded, not trusting herself to speak, the sweetness of human kindness nearly undoing her. The afternoon at the library passed in gentle routine. Anna found a rhythm in shelving, in helping an elderly patron find old war memoirs, in smiling at Martha's terrible puns. But as the sun dipped and the building emptied, exhaustion crept in. She realized she had been living at half throttle for years, waiting for someone to ask the right question or give her secret permission to change. Now, with her mother's legacy delivered like a benediction, permission seemed like the gift she could finally give herself. That night, she walked the length of Greenfield's main street alone. Shop windows glowed under the last light. Families gathered at crowded tables behind glass. The world seemed to belong to people who trusted tomorrow. Anna felt the old ache of loneliness, yes, but now it was twined with purpose and possibility. She sat in the quiet park listening to crickets and distant laughter, her mother's words in her pocket. When she returned home, Evie waited at the kitchen table with tea and a faded photograph. "I thought you should have this now." The photo was a black and white of Lena and Evie, both so young Anna barely recognized them, arms around each other, heads tipped back in unrestrained laughter. Lena's eyes, Anna's eyes, full of secrecy and sunlight. Tears gathered, but this time Anna's grief was not for loss, but for the beauty of inheritance. As summer days stretched, Anna wove herself into the life of Greenfield with increasing courage. Her friendship with Mel grew. Evie became a confidant and a co-conspirator in small joys, teaching Anna the slow art of making jam, the pleasure of digging bulbs with bare hands. Her job at the library blossomed into hours reading to children, planning poetry nights, bringing a little of the outside world into a quiet town. Each week, Anna sent a postcard to her sister, testing the strength of a relationship she'd let go quiet for too long. Some messages came back, tentative and hopeful. "Are you all right? Do you need anything?" Anna wrote back, "I don't know what I need, but I think I'm learning how to ask." The bakery became a canvas for new ambition. Mel asked her to help invent a new recipe for the summer festival. Anna devised a lemon fennel loaf, and the process brought her a satisfaction so deep she made dozens of test batches in her small kitchen. The final product sold out in hours. For the first time, Anna let herself accept the praise. "Yes, it was my idea. Yes, I did this." The pride was heady. The shop regulars smiled at her as if she were an old friend. Marta insisted Anna lead story time for the library's annual Kids' Day. Shaky at first, Anna found her voice in the wildly inventive questions of children unafraid to ask why. Every lesson, every task, every day carried forward the revolution she'd begun with a suitcase and a ticket to nowhere. Still, the old world wasn't gone. There were nights Anna checked her phone for missed calls, half hoping for her husband's apology or her father's, or someone to beg her back and offer understanding. The urge faded with time, replaced by the steady realization that not everyone would follow her into this new life. That, too, was a kind of freedom. As July arrived, Greenfield transformed itself around her with parades, markets, and the lazy overflow of community fairs. Anna entered a pie contest, not expecting to win, but for the pleasure of saying yes to life's small invitations. She didn't take the prize, but her tart was devoured, and a stranger asked for the recipe. Under starlight, Mel threw her arms around Anna and whispered, "Can you believe this is your life now?" Anna could believe it because she had earned it. Each small risk, every confession or kind word or new recipe became a flag planted in the soil of her new country. One Saturday evening, as dusk layered lavender on the horizon, Anna brought Evie and Mel to the garden with a bottle of chilled wine and the old inscribed poetry book. They read passages aloud, filling the humid air with laughter, with tears, with Lena's words. By the time they finished, Anna saw her mother's escape not as failure, but as a beginning, a crack in the wall that had allowed Anna, years later, to walk through. She looked at Evie and Mel, at the auburn glow in Evie's hair and the deep lines beside Mel's smile, and thought, if this is what happens when I leave everything behind, then maybe it was everything after all that was holding me back. Autumn crept into the corners of Greenfield with a quiet that Anna welcomed. Leaves flamed and drifted over Main Street, the air sharpened, and the sweet pungency of wood smoke blended with the bakery's cinnamon and clove. Summer's bright revelations softened into rhythms. Anna's life no longer felt on the run, but rooted, sustained. The milestones were subtle: recognition at the hardware store, invitations to the choir potluck, Marta's suggestion that Anna consider taking courses in library science. She started walking each morning, circling the lake with the same notebook her mother once loved, filling it with lines not just about grief and flight, but about finding, mending, and growing. On one foggy sunrise, Anna wrote, "I am not a story of escape. I am a story of inheritance. My mother left so I could someday learn how to arrive. The difference was monumental. The world she'd left did not relinquish its grip easily." Her husband's lawyer called once, clipped and demanding, but Anna had prepared. She stated her truth calmly and sent the papers she'd already signed in advance with Evie's help. A letter from her sister arrived with no return address, torn and messy, but inside was a photo of them as children and the line, "You are braver than anyone has ever told you." Anna wrote back, "So are you. Let's be sisters again." As September wore on, Anna reached out to help with the town's harvest fundraiser, joining planning sessions in church basements with Mel and Evie. She volunteered to teach pie baking classes at the bakery and noticed with quiet joy that people listened when she spoke. Her ideas invited, debated, and sometimes celebrated. She started saving money not for escape, but for travel, for dreams. Instead of hoarding a secret, she began to plan a life. At the library, she organized the poetry collection and found her mother's inscription pressed between two yellowed leaves. She wrote a grant proposal for a community story project. Everyone in town had a secret, a sorrow, a victory. Children recorded interviews with elders. The project won funding and made the front page of the local paper. At the launch party, Anna told her story for the first time, trembling under fluorescent lights but determined not to disappear. Most nights, Anna and Evie shared a gentle routine: tea at the kitchen table, stories and silences, bread broken together. Mel joined often, arms full of brownies or garden tomatoes. The house had grown louder, richer, fuller, so much like a family Anna ached for those forgotten years. Evie, growing frail, began to lean on Anna, asking for help with small tasks, then larger ones. In winter, Anna promised, she would stay for good. Not as a guest, but as a partner, taking over rent and chores. "Families are pieced together by intention as much as blood," Evie said, voice wavering between pride and peace. The bakery became Anna's in everything but name. Mel floated rumors of retirement, Anna took on more hours, learned the books, started planning menus, and even painted a small mural on the back wall, her first brushstrokes in public since school. No one questioned her right to do so. Greenfield's first frost arrived in October, and with it came anniversaries Anna honored quietly. Her birthday, the day she left home, the first time she read one of her mother's poems to a live audience. Instead of sadness, she felt a pulse of gratitude, a private celebration for each wound healed and every risk survived. One evening, after closing the shop, Anna stood in the empty street and felt the old fear slither up her spine. What if it was all temporary, this belonging, this safety, this joy? But she breathed steadily, remembering Evie's locket, her mother's letters, the simple, stubborn acts that pieced her together. She walked home in darkness, the moon bright over the fields. "This is not a life I ran to," she wrote that night. "This is the life I chose by refusing to accept someone else's script." Looking around at the books on her shelf, the friendships grown strong and steady, the family found and not inherited, Anna marveled at all that comes after the end in stories. Sometimes the real living takes place off the page, in the quiet persistence that comes after courage. In the morning, she would rise, step into bakery light, greet new faces and old friends, and carry forward her mother's unfinished escape by turning it into something lasting. Not an act of disappearance, but of reappearance, of finally being seen in full, of taking up the space she deserved. She had once left everything behind. In doing so, she had found more than she ever knew belonged to her.